this regard, what currencies is the public going to use to buy fuel? If you address that question, you would have addressed many problems. The price of fuel. The ZiG must buy fuel because that is our local currency. That's where the problems start. Once fuel is not priced in the ZiG, people will begin to chase the black market again to get US dollars.
In other words, there was some rationality in reaching the value. There was some rationality. There is some algorithm that they use. There's some calculation, which, as I'm saying to you, I calculated independently, and I reached that same figure. Right. Having said that, my contention is that, yes, there is some rationality. Yes, there is some degree of link with the state assets like gold. It touches on US dollar, it touches on the price of gold, etc. So all these factors went into the formula that eventually give us that 1:13. The question of whether or not there are real assets that back that up is a question for another day, which me and you can discuss in the program. But for now, I would say my opinion is that there was some rationality that went into its calculation, and therefore it's a currency that is worth supporting, and I will tell you why. Currencies, by their very nature, they are products of some compromise. If I look at the Botswana currency is algorithmed to the IMF currencies, the SDR, at 55% and 45% to the South African rand. The weighted average of those, it gives you the value of the Botswana currency. With a standard deviation, it can vary within a certain threshold, but that is what gives you the Botswana currency as things stand. Now,
thank you, facilitator. I am just an ordinary consumer, Dr. Mshava. So I'm going to speak like one. So as a consumer, my indicators about faith in the currency is shown by what government does. If government does not accept duty in ZiG, or the payment for fuel in ZiG, I have got a question. I know Mr. Gomatanga said it's a journey, but I want to see government and the Reserve Bank taking the first step, and not in terms of the economics of explaining to us how it works, because we have heard that before. When the bond note was introduced, the then governor had a whole meeting with the Law Society of Zimbabwe, to which I belong. It was a few hours long. We were assured the bond note would be backed by a deposit of $200 million after the Exim Bank. We were assured no printing would be done. We were assured so many things about stability and so on. I remember at that time, not having been convinced in the meeting, I and my partner made an appointment with the governor and sat down with him in his office, because we had clients who were keen to invest. And they had one question: will we get our money out? We couldn't answer it even after that meeting. So it's all okay, and I do trust the governor. I know him well. I do trust the PEMSEC. I know him well. But do I trust policy as a consumer? The answer is no. We can go round and round in all kinds of things. But if we don't put the step forward that convinces me, if I have ZiG today and I'm importing a car, I can go to the border and pay for my duty in ZiG. You can't then convince me that it's a currency that works in the manner that we're explaining. And it's a matter about usability. Just listen to the consumers out there. For the reason that we are not economists, we are looking at the practical aspects of what do I do with the currency. If I go to Mberengwa now and I buy something with a US dollar, they are going to give me rand coins as change. And it's rampant if you go to Mberengwa, to Matabele in the south, and parts of Masvingo. That's the way they function. It works. But do I want ZiG right now? I'm not so sure. Because let me see you take the step. Comrade Permanent Secretary, let's see you take the step. Let me be able to buy fuel. If it is multi-currency, my understanding of multi-currencies is interchangeable, freely. There is no one that's acceptable more than the other. But practically, does government today accept ZiG the same way it accepts the US dollar? So the questions about the passport office are legitimate, because I must pay for it, the passport. If I go with ZiG, will you take it? If you can't, you are creating doubt. So it boils down to one matter, confidence. The economics, the gold deposits, of course we will never verify that because we don't know what's in the vaults. You have told us we believe you for now. But how does it help me, the common man, to be able to function? And that would be my comment, Dr. Mshawan. It might sound a little bit emotive, but it is because I have lost my savings 3 times since I started working. Thank you.
What are the chances of success of the ZiG currency?
Me and you have already discussed, Mr. Babunkala, that the value of a currency is a function of the confidence it enjoys from the people, from the markets. The markets being consumers, buyers, and sellers. So any currency, whether it's a US dollar, it's a rand, it's a Chinese yuan, or Japanese yen, etc., all of them, the values attached to them are dependent on the confidence that they get from the markets. Now, the ZiG, the success or failure of the ZiG lies in the hands of the people, of primarily the people of Zimbabwe. If they go into the J.J. Rousseau social contract and say, okay, let's put the problems of the past behind and support this currency at 1:13 and give it the necessary confidence that it deserves, then the currency can succeed. But if we both lose confidence and we throw our hands up in the air and think, then it will fail.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for that. I'm going to borrow from His Excellency, the President's speech when he visited the Central Bank on Thursday. Someone asked almost a similar question, and he said, when Jesus came, and he said, I'm the Son of God, some believed, some did not. But that does not mean that he was not the Son of God. If you are going to doubt ZiG, I said earlier on, it's game on. You are going to hunt for ZiG. If I were you, I would start hunting for it now. Because at the time you need it, you may not find it. And if you find it, you will find it at a very expensive price. I don't want to repeat what the PEMSEC said about the pricing and the background to it. Otherwise, we could just be talking about the same story. But I just want to leave that with you. And I also want to tell you that if you have any forex payment you want to make outside the country, right now, go to your bank and it will be paid. If you go to the parallel market, it means you are doing something illegal. But if you have something legitimate to pay, go to your bank and we will make sure that it is paid. I told you that the total amount of money in circulation in this market is worth less than 80 million US dollars. Right now, the central bank has more than 100 million US dollars cash without even selling an ounce of gold. So, I know you are just a consumer, but you are a consumer who can do maths. You should know that we have the capacity as the central bank to meet all foreign obligations as they fall due. The PEMSEC said we are in a multi-currency environment. If you want us to de-dollarize today, that's another debate. But for now, we know that we are in a multi-currency environment until 2030. That's my response to you. I want you to take note of what I've said. Come back to me in June. We'll give you an appointment to come to the central bank. Let's see if you are going to be telling the same story.
No, I just wanted to support the governor's response to Dr. Mashakada. And obviously the calls that we have also seen on social media to say that if this currency does not buy fuel or does not pay for a passport, then it's not a strong currency, or then it's not a usable currency. I think we just need to go back to the journey that resulted in us using a multi-currency system. It was an agreed position between government and industry. And that's why industry is also using US dollar as we speak today, because there was an agreement. But more importantly, what we have done with the currencies today is one major milestone towards the de-dollarization. We have not de-dollarized as yet, Dr. Mashagana. Because what you are calling for action we should be taking in a fully de-dollarized environment. This is one milestone that we have taken. And the journey takes up to 2030. So that within that journey, there will be a point where fuel will be fully sold in ZiG, along the journey. Within that journey, there will be a point where all duties will be payable in ZiG, not even 50%. Within that journey, there will be a point where all government, ministries, departments, and agencies are actually forced to accept both currencies. In fact, we are going to be forcing them very soon within that journey. It might be actually tomorrow. We are working on a circular to all government, ministries, departments, and agencies that they cannot insist on payment in US dollars. They can't insist. So that's the instruction when I go back to the office that I'm going to be sending to most ministries, departments, and agencies. So that mischief is actually, but it's part of the journey. But we cannot call for action today.
Zimbabwe's new currency, the ZiG, is currently trading stronger than the rand, according to Pietri Riedenlinghuys from Herenia Capital Advisors. Part of that strength comes from the rallying gold price on which the new currency is backed. ZiG, which is short for Zimbabwe Gold, was rolled out on Monday. It replaced the Zimbabwean dollar, which has tumbled in value over the past year, pushing inflation through the roof, which is currently over 50%. While the market can still determine the value of the currency, the current price of gold will keep it elevated.
For Zimbabwe to go back to the gold standard essentially is a very interesting and I think a very wise move. If we look at the Zimbabwean currency, it's currently strengthened against the dollar for essentially 2 days in a row since it started trading on Monday, and is currently stronger than the rand, to the US dollar. And that is mostly because it is backed by physical gold. So there's a couple of things that have happened. Obviously, they've introduced this gold-backed currency, and they're doing away with the Zimbabwe dollar. It's interesting to see what they've done. Also, they've cut interest rates from like 150% to, and yes, 150% is what the interest rate was, down to only 20%. So that's quite a big move. So, the feeling is that the stronger sort of gold-backed currency will help stem inflation. They're hoping to get inflation down to around 5% by the end of the year. And just to sort of elaborate on the gold thing, essentially, rather than the market freely being able to determine the value of the currency, which, for the most part, it still can, the currency is physically backed by underlying gold. So for every dollar or Zimbabwe gold, ZiG, that's in circulation, there is actual physical gold underlying and backing that currency.
Thank you. The ZiG, it's a currency that has just been introduced a few days ago. And it's said that, number one, it is linked to gold. Number two, it is also linked to other assets beyond gold. And three, it is also linked to other formal currencies, maybe hard currencies like the US dollar and others. That is currencies that constitute the foreign exchange reserves. So it's a currency that is linked to assets like gold and also assets like foreign exchange reserves. Right. So let's move away from that and look at the mechanics of how it was conceived. So I did an independent calculation of how the ZiG came about. And what I'm happy about is the fact that I reached the same, I got the same output when I did an independent calculation of using the variables, some of the variables that they provided, right? One ZiG is said to be equal to 1 milligram of gold, 1 milligram of gold. Now, gold, if you go to your TV screen every day, you see the gold price. The gold price is priced at 1 fine ounce. The 1 fine ounce of gold, I think a few days ago when I did the calculation, it was $23.86, if my memory serves me right. I can check the figure. So 1 fine ounce of gold was $23.86 US dollar. Now, 1 ZiG is equal to 1 milligram of gold. 1 fine ounce of gold is equal to 31,100 milligrams of gold. Now, if you take 1 milligram divided by 31,100 milligrams, multiplying that by the price of gold, you get the dollar value of the ZiG. So at 1 divided by 31,100 multiplied by the gold price of 23.86, if my memory serves me right, you will get a figure of $0.075.
0.0